Joyful blessings. This is Kaylin Castell with a look at the United States of America Chiron return from 2023 to 2025. It literally started in 2023. We're going to see how that is going on, but it's making its first two exact passes in 2024 and its last exact pass in 2025. And this is fascinating. So what we're going to start looking at is the Chiron signature on the USA chart. So here we have the United States chart for July 4th, 1776. This is also done at a time and way that was created by Dane Rajar. And so it's one that I like to use. There's other charts that are out there, so other ways of looking at it. And one of the things I often like to remind everyone is that no matter how you look at the mysteries, if you're focusing your attention in a certain way, it will work. It's not right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse. It is just how you choose to look at it. So this is how we're looking at it today. And we have Chiron here in Aries in the fifth house. We'll talk more about the fifth house in a moment. But it's at 20 degrees and 8 minutes of Aries. Now, for if you don't know, there are 30 degrees in a sign and 60 minutes in a degree. So it has just entered the 20th degree. Also, Chiron is opposite Saturn, and it is square the USA Sun and Mercury. And this, we're going to be looking at all of this in a moment. I will just quickly say that Chiron in the fifth house suggests that part of the wounding is around self-love, self-respect, self-worth, self-confidence, self-approval, self-acceptance, the self issues. And what happens if we also look in Aries, it is self-focused. So the wound can be putting individual needs before the greater good, the wounding of this country, and especially the government that represents this country. Now, healthy Aries protects the greater good for all. Wounded Aries is protecting its own interests. Healthy Aries stands for the right of everyone, not just a few. So the rights of everyone are what come first. And really, the Declaration of Independence and the preamble to the Constitution speak into this. And yet, the United States hasn't truly, fully lived up to those ideals and to those declarations and to those intentions that were put into motion back in the 1700s and when the Constitution was activated. So the Aries wound suggests that the United States was fighting for freedom and a need to be self-determining, coming from a sense of not feeling good enough. And the challenge was that England was telling them what to do. They had taxation without representation. They, the founding people of the United States wanted to be able to determine their own way. Very Chiron and Aries. And with Chiron square, the United States Sun and Mercury, it suggests there's wounding around healthy use of life force energy, the sun that gives us life. Without the sun, we wouldn't have life on this planet. And communication, Mercury has to do with how we communicate and creatively express. So all these things are factors that are part of the wounding of the United States chart. Also, with Chiron in the fifth house in the sign of Aries opposite Saturn, this can express, the wound can express as collective narcissism and the need to be seen as great and amazing. So look how great we are. Look at what we've accomplished against all odds. Look at how we became a world power and then the world power. It began by declaring freedom and independence from England because the people no longer wanted to be told what to do. That's a very Aries aspect as well. It's like Aries will stand for its cause, fight for its cause, and the shadow side of Aries will be to maybe even be paid for fighting for a cause. But Aries, when it's really healthy, wants to be self-determining and also to protect the cosmic order and cosmic justice. So then what happened right away after the Declaration of Independence was created was the Revolutionary War because they had to free themselves from England's power and control. and they were outnumbered, they were outgunned, they were, it's a miracle that they actually won that war. But it started from a place of feeling insecure about being relevant, about becoming a country, about all of those things. And so it created this need to be seen as the best, most powerful global leader and influencer, and that has happened. So when this wound is healed, then we can live from healthy independence, recognizing how we are also interdependent with the rest of the world. And I'm saying we, meaning the United States. I do live in the United States, so I feel this is significant to me. If you're not in the United States, these energies are still significant and important, because how do we live in healthy independence, but also recognize that we are interconnected with everyone around the world, and that our planet is the home for all of us. We're all on the same ship, so to speak. So the Chiron opposition, and so you can see that here, the Chiron opposition to Saturn is where the wounds are how to create a way of governing that serves everyone, and that hasn't been the case. And in fact, even though that was the intent that was spoken into, it really wasn't the full awareness of those who were creating these documents and creating these intentions. So the US was founded on the principles of freedom and independence for we the people, meaning all people on earth, not just an elite few. But it wasn't that there was that they actually were living that, because of course there was slavery, and there were the people that were coming over as indentured servants, and all the different ways that wasn't really for all people, although they thought that that I think they were speaking to their elite when they were writing that, but they said all we the people, so meaning all the people. And that's the challenge that has continual plagued this country, and really serving all the people. So additional wounding from those governing this country was around putting their needs and desires for more power over the general welfare of its citizens. So the question that we can ask is, how does the USA heal these wounds so it can act as a genuine peacemaker, leading in ways that truly promote peace, equality, and collaboration with the rest of the world, not just for its own self, as the narcissistic aspect. But really, if we look at all these planets in Cancer, Venus, Jupiter, Sun, and Mercury in Cancer, aspected by Chiron and Saturn, the intent is, how do we create a safe space for everyone to be who they truly are? And that's the challenge. So another aspect of the Chiron wound is othering. So if you don't know what othering is, it's defined as viewing or treating a person or group of people as intrinsically different from an alien to oneself, less than, unimportant, you're other, so we don't care about you. We care about ourselves. And so anyway, I love this cartoon that says, "Stop othering me." What's othering? Your kind could never understand. So basically, the person saying, "Stop othering me," is actually othering the person they're asking to not stop othering. And so it's an interesting reflection about how the United States has these ideals that it put into place, has never lived up to, and has done the exact things that it's was claiming to create a different experience around. So if you're not part of the group, others, then you're the others who don't belong. So the USA has a tendency towards othering, or making some more important and others less important, including other countries. Some countries are more important and some are less important. Some world leaders are more important and some are less important. Political agendas. Some political agendas seem to be more important and others less important. Other religions. And the US has been seen as a country based on Christianity, but the whole point of people coming, the pilgrims coming to this country, was so they could have freedom to express the religion that was important to them. And this is something that hasn't been completely followed through on in the United States. And then other gender identifications. If you're not identifying as the way we think you should be identifying, you are other and you are not important. So this tends to distract those in government from leading in ways that are best for the greater good of all. And what we're recognizing is the importance of considering the needs of everyone to help heal this wound, to stop othering and build belonging, and that all people are important, regardless of what they identify as or think or believe or whatever, as long as it's not doing harm to anyone. And that's the most important piece. So this is the foundation of how we're going to look at this United States Chiron return, and how Chiron has been in Aries since 2019 and is in Aries until 2026. In 2023, the US Chiron return began. Chiron was square the USA Sun on February 17th, and on March 18th, it was opposite Saturn. And it was, it hasn't come up to Mercury yet, so that piece hasn't happened yet. But it also crossed the US IC before that, and also squared Venus and Jupiter before that. So it really has been going on for some time. But in 2023, Chiron stationed retrograde at 19 Aries and 57 minutes, meaning it was only 11 minutes out of 60 minutes in a degree from being exact on the USA natal Chiron at 20 Aries and 8 minutes. So it was also within 10 degrees of the transiting North Node. And if you haven't seen the video I did on what the Chiron North Node aspect is, there's way more information about how Chiron is the shamanic healer and how we can work with that, and how this Chiron exact conjunction to the North Node that happened in February of 2024 is playing out for a lot of 2024. So definitely worth, and I'll put it in the show notes so you can easily find that video. And then April 3, Chiron is re-entering 1 degree of the USA Chiron. And on April 20th, November 8th, and February 18th, Chiron is making exact passes to natal Chiron on the USA chart. And it won't do this again until 2074, 75, and 2076. So this is amazing. And also you can see the Chiron stations retrograde at 23 Aries, very close to the Mercury, having come into alignment with the Mercury of the US Mercury. Not quite exactly there, but very close. And then it goes direct at 19 Aries. So it's within 1 degree and 8 minutes of the US Chiron. So it means it's hanging out with the USA Chiron for quite a number of weeks, very close within that 1 degree mark. So just a little bit of history about what happened with Chiron back in 1776. It was when the July 4th, when the Declaration of Independence began the formation of this country. But then it came back 3 more times on April 14th of 1777, November 21st of 1777, and February 5th of 1778. Interesting, in September and October, when it was coming back for another exact pass, the Battle of Saratoga happened, and that was considered a turning point that lifted the morale and hope for independence, because the United States was very outnumbered and outgunned, as I already mentioned. And it also helped secure foreign support that was needed to win the war against the English. Now, in 1825 and 1826, that 50 years later, the House of Representatives elected John Quincy Adams as the 6th president of the United States after the Electoral College failed to produce a winner. The 1824 election, now we are 200 years past that in 2024, was one of 3 presidential elections where the Electoral College did not elect a president. So will it happen again in 2024? It's an interesting question, as we are again in another Chiron return time. Don't know the answer to that, but maybe perhaps part of the wounding of the US is the fact that we do have an Electoral College, so that the president is not elected by the popular vote, as what happened in 2016 when the Electoral College elected Trump, but Hillary Clinton had 3 million more votes, a popular vote than Donald Trump. So and this has happened before, also back in 2000, I think, when George Bush was elected, and there were more of the popular vote went to, I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, this has happened before. So the Electoral College doesn't feel like it's necessarily in the best interest, because if we the people are voting for the president, it should be based on the popular vote, in my opinion, my humble opinion. So back in 1874 and 1875, 50 years later, an outgoing Congress passed the Civil Rights Act, granting African Americans equal access to public accommodations, including transportation. So it was a step in the right direction, even though it maybe wasn't fully honored all across the country. And then in 1923, 24, and 25, in 1923, Calvin Coolidge becomes the president after the death of Warren Harding. And then the following year, he delivers the first radio address from the White House. So these are just some interesting facts of what was going on. And 1924 was a crucial year for immigration and citizenship acts in the USA, introduced by Calvin Coolidge, who signed an immigration law restricting immigration to the United States from other countries due to the huge influx of immigrants following the end of the First World War. So we see these things playing out in the political agenda on the world stage now, here in 2024, so 100 years later. And it was just interesting to note that the worst tornado in U.S. history hit Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana in 1925, creating 689 deaths. So these are just some historical facts, but the most important ones, I think, are the ones that are political, looking at what's happening in the political agenda. And I don't want to get into the political, I don't take sides, and I'm not, I just find it fascinating to look at what's going on. So going back to 1973 to 1975, also when Pluto was crossing the midheaven of the United States, the Nixon was inaugurated for a second term, and then the Supreme Court decided Roe versus Wade, and the signing of the Paris Peace Accord ended the U.S. participation in the Vietnam War. A lot going on at the beginning of this of the Chiron return in 1973. But by 1974, we had the Watergate scandal, and President Nixon had to resign on August 9th of 1974. And he was the first president to resign from office. He did so to avoid being removed by impeachment and conviction and possible jail in his response, as he had his role in the Watergate scandal. In 1974, the fate of most of Nixon's men was decided, and the Supreme Court rejected Nixon's claims of executive privilege. This is fascinating, since this is what's playing out on the world stage currently. And then by 1975, some of the main players in the Watergate scandal were guilty of the Watergate cover up. And on the world stage, the Vietnam War ended, even though we had stepped out of it back in 1973. So it's interesting to see what's playing out here 50 years later with this Chiron return. So if we think about Chiron as a planetary initiation, guiding us and the US, guiding whoever's going through a Chiron return, whatever country, because we're looking at it from the perspective of the country, to be willing to see the shadow side and how this country has not only experienced wound, but also has caused wounding. Recognizing the wounds that are ready to be transmuted and transformed through the power of genuine compassion and forgiving the unforgivable. That is the Chironic healing. That is explained more in the Chiron North Node video that, again, will be in the show notes. And then letting go of addictions to power and perfection. That is one of the wounds of the United States. And reclaiming our innate wisdom through the power of genuine acceptance of what is, so our wounds become our strength. And that is the intent for any Chiron, for a personal Chiron, return or planetary, or a personal Chiron initiation, if it's going over a personal planet. That's the intent for either a uh, countries being initiated, or planetary initiation, or a personal initiation, I guess. So here on April 20th, coming up, 2024, is the exact first pass of Chiron over the natal Chiron. And you can see the transiting Chiron here at 20 Aries, 8 minutes, to the natal USA Chiron at 20 degrees and 8 minutes. Also with Venus, 1947, very close to the 20-degree mark, coming across with Chiron, and Mercury is retrograde, so it's moving the other direction and about to make a conjunction to the North Node at 15 Aries. So it's suggesting, and when we think about Mercury being a big player in the Chiron aspect of it all, and that how are we perceiving, how are we seeing this? And basically Mercury's going to has already made 2 passes across the USA natal Chiron, and will make a 3rd pass over the United States Chiron after it goes direct at on April 25th. I think it's going direct, and then it'll make the 3rd pass in early May. So the United States has the opportunity to transform from needing to be the world leader and only one shining on the world stage, to feeling confident about finding ways to equally co-create and collaborate with the rest of the world. And it's a deeper wound, healing of the wound, a deeper healing of the wound of being narcissistic and self-serving. So this is profound. And of course, this will continue on, because on November 8th, just 3 days after the USA election, meaning that Chiron is super close to the election, Chiron returns. So it'll be within minutes of being exact on the election day of November 5th. It'll be interesting to see what's playing out at that time. Also, we have the North Node within a couple of degrees coming back, to be exact, on the USA IC, or Amum Coeli, on December 20th, 2024. So the IC of the chart of the USA indicates the intent for how this country is intended to live inside itself. So it represents the possibility of a new destiny being ignited during this Chiron return. And the Aries intent, when it's the IC, the Aries in Aries, it's the intent is to stand for cosmic justice, to restore justice where needed, to really stand for protecting everyone, not just a few. Of course, the Aries in its shadow side is like, I'm protecting my own interests, and and I will do whatever I need to do. I will conquer you if I need to do that. So that's the shadow side of Aries. Now, the other thing that's interesting is here's Jupiter, very close to the USA Mars, coming back to, or Jupiter's been across the descendant and Uranus, and then transiting Moon. Whoops, I guess I got those. Something shifted slightly here. Sorry about that. The transiting Moon. So Moon is near the south node of the USA chart, suggesting that that the past, the karma of the past is catching up. It's time to really see the shadow of what has been happening, put a spotlight on that so it can be transmuted and transformed. And then Mars is approaching the USA North Node. So so what action steps will we take? Mars is most like Aries. How are we going to protect and defend the ideals that this country was founded on, and actually, maybe for the first time, truly live them? Pretty amazing. And then February 18th is the last exact pass, and Jupiter's come back to be very close to the descendant Uranus, and will be approaching Mars again. Mars is going to be sitting between the Sun and Mercury at this exact pass, And Pluto is coming up to the south node of the USA chart. It's going to pass exact starting in 2027. And Venus is catching up to both transiting and USA Chiron. So it's just these features would suggest that these Chiron return moments are extremely powerful and could create something that we haven't had before. So this is the questions that we can ask ourselves around the Chiron return, helping to heal all the cultural wounding of the last 248 years. How is this Chiron return helping to heal all the cultural wounding of the last 248 years, including power over, control over others, and manipulation that has been perpetrated on we the people? And what would it take to have a massive paradigm shift in consciousness, restoring cosmic justice and the greater good for we the people all over the planet and for all life? And how can we responsibly act and courageously commit to doing the inner alchemical healing work now needed to shift our personal vibration? And as we shift our personal vibration, and enough of us do that, that shifts the collective vibration of the United States, those of us who are here in the United States, but also for the planet. So our opportunity is to stand for protecting the sacred within each of us, the sacredness of life, the sacredness of the earth, the sacredness of the sky, and the sacredness found in acts of forgiveness, kindness, and love. And there's more on that. I'll put a link to an article that I've done about the powers of the three powers of Chiron in Aries: the power of kindness, the power of love, and the power of forgiving the unforgivable, for those of you who would like more information about that. So we're going to wrap this up with gratitude for Chiron's blessed healing light, now transforming our wounded world. Blessed be.